License, registration, or just a good excuse, old man?" The rookie laughed, tapping the hood of the dented truck. The man behind the wheel didn't blink. He kept both hands on the steering wheel, steady, sunburned, silent. Asterisk, what secrets was this old truck hiding? Stay with Dignity Diaries to find out. Asterisk, 58 minutes later, a black SUV pulled up. A 4-star general stepped out. No salute, just 6 words: "That man built the team that saved me." Asterisk, if that hit you hard, you won't believe what happens next. Keep watching with Dignity Diaries. Asterisk, comment honor for every forgotten soldier still walking among us, silent, steady, unseen. If you believe respect should come before regret, share this story. Someone needs to hear it today. Thomas Redden wasn't in a hurry that morning. He never was. At 83, his days moved slow by choice. Not because age had slowed him down, but because he'd lived through too many days that moved too fast. That morning, he'd picked up pressure-treated wood from the local yard. A widow down the road had a porch step starting to give. Thomas said he'd fix it before the next rain, no charge. The clerk offered to load the truck, but Thomas waved him off with a small nod. He'd built this truck himself, long before most people in town were born. The engine coughed every time it turned over. The radio hadn't worked in years, and the tags had rusted clean off. But it ran, because Thomas knew every bolt, every hose, every stubborn gear inside it. He didn't need Bluetooth. He needed movement, quiet. His jacket was clean but worn, the kind that had seen deserts, jungles, snowstorms, but now mostly saw grocery aisles, hardware stores. On STR, on the left shoulder, stitched and faded, the Airborne Division symbol told a particular story. Most folks didn't notice it. They didn't notice him, and that's how he liked it. The world had changed. People rushed past, heads down, judging in half-glances. Men like Thomas didn't ask to be seen. They kept fixing what needed fixing, quietly, without a bill. He turned onto the side road home, the truck creaking with every bump in the gravel. The wood shifted in the bed. The sun hit the cracked windshield just right. That's when the red and blue lights flickered in his rearview mirror. He didn't panic, didn't curse. He pulled over slowly, shifted into park, rested both hands on the wheel. This wasn't the first time someone looked at him and saw nothing. But it just might be the last time they got away with it. The squad car door opened, fast, too fast. Out stepped a young officer, maybe 24, fresh from the academy. His partner followed, slower, but with that same edge in his stride, the kind that came from confidence without context. The younger one circled to the driver's side, tapped the window twice with his knuckle. "Roll it down, sir." Thomas obliged, slow, deliberate. The window motor groaned louder than the engine. The officer smirked, looking around the interior. No plates, no tags. This thing even insured? Thomas didn't answer right away. He reached into the glove box, pulled out a folded envelope, corners frayed, seal half-worn. He handed it over without a word. The officer opened it, scoffed. Historical vehicle registration? This expired 3 years ago. His partner stepped in, peering at the wood in the truck bed. "What's all this?" "Tools, nails, lumber." "You planning to build something or tear something down?" Thomas spoke finally, voice gravelly, quiet. "Just replacing a broken step for Mrs. Balcom." The officers exchanged a glance. "Cute. You got ID on you, sir?" Thomas reached into his coat, handed over an old leather wallet. Inside, a driver's license, an army ID card worn soft at the edges, a single photo so faded you could barely make out the men in it. The younger officer took the photo out. "What's this? Your poker group?" Thomas looked at him, said nothing. "All right, out of the vehicle, please. Hands where I can see them." Thomas stepped out, no resistance, just a steady breath, boots landing softly on the gravel shoulder. "You're not carrying anything sharp, are you?" "Only thing sharp left is my mind," Thomas muttered. They patted him down. "Anyway, sir, we're going to need you to sit on the curb while we sort this out." Thomas lowered himself onto the concrete with a quiet grunt, not because he was resisting, but because his knees remembered things these boys would never understand. The officers moved back to the truck. One started lifting items from the bed, a hammer, a drill, a carefully wrapped set of hinges. The other opened the passenger door, rifled through the glove box. "That your notebook?" He pulled out a battered green military log. Inside, names, dozens of them. Some had small stars next to them. Some were crossed out. "What's this? A kill list?" He joked. Thomas didn't answer. He watched the wind pick up dust along the roadside. In that silence, the disrespect grew heavier than any weight he'd carried in years. They made him sit there, concrete curb, midday sun, knees burning through denim that hadn't seen a washing machine in a week. Gravel bit into his palms every time he adjusted his weight. But he didn't complain. The younger officer leaned against the truck's hood, sipping from a fast food cup like it was any ordinary stop. The other tapped on his tablet, squinting at the DMV database like it was written in code. People slowed as they passed. Some looked, some didn't. One teenager on a bike doubled back, holding his phone up like it was a zoo exhibit. "Yo, Grandpa got arrested," he snickered, filming from across the street, uploaded in real time, captioned, "Vietnam Grandpa vs. Police." Thomas didn't flinch, just stared ahead, past the patrol car, past the traffic light, past the ignorance. The younger officer bent down, smirking. "You all right, sir? You seem kind of out of it." Still no answer. He couldn't tell if they thought he was deaf or slow. Maybe both. They didn't see the tension in his jaw, how his fingers rested calmly on his thigh, the same way they used to rest on the safety of an M4, waiting for the green light. They didn't see the discipline, the history. They only saw the flannel, the rusted truck, the silence. That was their mistake. One officer opened the driver's side door, reached beneath the seat, found a folded map, spare gloves, a laminated military ID, dog-eared but preserved. He glanced at it. "Sergeant Major Thomas Redden, that you?" Thomas gave a slow nod. The officer chuckled. "Well, even if you were in the military, sir, that doesn't mean you're above the law." He tossed the ID onto the seat like it was a discount coupon. The silence from Thomas deepened, not because he was scared, but because he'd seen this before, young men drunk on their badge, too blind to realize what they were standing on. Across the street, a man in a gray work shirt stepped out of the gas station, squinted, his eyes locked onto Thomas. He didn't wave, didn't speak. He reached for his phone, dialed. "It's Mike." "Yeah, I need to report something." "No, not a crime. A mistake. A big one." He paused. "They've got Tom Redden sitting on the sidewalk, hands in his lap like he's nobody." Another pause. "You're going to want to get down here now." The call ended. Back on the curb, Thomas adjusted his cap slowly. He didn't know who Mike had called, but he knew this, whoever it was, they'd remember. Mike Henderson didn't work for the military anymore, but you don't forget the face of the man who pulled you out of a burning convoy in Kandahar. He'd seen Sergeant Major Redden only a few times since the war, mostly at quiet VFW meetings where Tom hardly spoke, just nodded, listened, helped clean up chairs afterward. But Mike remembered. Everyone who served with Tom did. Through the dusty gas station window, he watched that same man, the one who patched his bleeding arm under enemy fire, being treated like a criminal. He stepped outside, made the call. A few blocks away, inside a command center buried behind 3 layers of security, the phone rang. A private line. General Nathaniel Lawson was reviewing satellite briefings when the assistant handed it to him. "It's a civilian. Says it's urgent, about a Sergeant Major Thomas Redden." The general froze mid-page, took the phone. "Where?" Mike's voice was steady. "Corner of 8th and Millwood. 2 local officers. They've got him on the ground like a stray dog. They don't know who he is, sir." A long pause. "You're absolutely sure it's him?" "Without a doubt." Another beat. "I'll be there in an hour." Back at the scene, the officers had grown bored. The search turned up nothing, no drugs, no weapons, no warrants. Just an old man, a logbook full of names, a beat-up truck, some hardware supplies. The younger cop tapped his tablet again. Still says vehicle not registered. Write him up for it. 3 citations? The partner asked. Yeah, let him fight it in court. They approached Thomas with clipboards, pens, like they were handing out parking tickets. One crouched. Sir, we're citing you for expired registration, unsafe vehicle condition, missing plates. Thomas looked up, face unreadable. He didn't reach for the papers, didn't argue, didn't blink. One cop muttered under his breath. Bet he still thinks he's some kind of war hero. Thomas didn't move, but in his mind, he felt the mud of Panama, the freezing breath of early morning extraction ops in Bosnia, the burn of climbing ropes with 50 pounds of gear. He remembered what real disrespect looked like. This was just noise. Across the street, Mike Henderson stood by the station door, watching the clock. 51 minutes left. He knew what was coming, and when it arrived, every person on that corner would remember the sound it made. The street went quiet. The air hung heavy, thick with heat, the low idle of the police cruiser. The younger officer leaned against the truck, legs crossed, tapping a message on his phone. The other was inside the car, AC running, radio murmuring updates about routine patrols, traffic congestion. Not a word about who they were detaining. Thomas stayed seated, unmoving. His hat shaded his eyes, but the stiffness in his spine hadn't changed. He could wait. He'd once waited 72 hours in a jungle riverbed for a recon team to pull him out. This was nothing. Across the street, Mike checked his watch. 9 minutes left. He didn't say a word, just waited. At exactly minute 59, the sound rolled in like thunder behind clouds. Thick, heavy tires gripping pavement. No sirens, no rush, just presence. A black SUV, matte finish, tinted windows, government plates. It didn't hesitate, didn't signal. It turned the corner, stopped directly behind the patrol car, precise, deliberate. Both officers looked up, brows furrowed, confused. The younger one muttered, "What's that, FBI?" His partner stood straighter. Could be. Maybe a Fed transfer. But even before the SUV doors opened, Mike knew. And Thomas didn't move. Not even when the back passenger door swung open. From the shadowed interior stepped General Nathaniel Lawson, full 4-star uniform, hat under one arm, eyes sharp enough to cut steel. He didn't look at the officers. He looked straight at the man on the curb. Sergeant Major Thomas Redden. Thomas lifted his chin slightly. The crowd gathering on the edges fell silent. Phones stopped mid-scroll. Some recorded. Others stood still, not understanding what they were witnessing. The younger officer stepped forward. Is there a problem, sir?" The general didn't answer right away. He turned, posture straight, decorated chest aligned. Then came the words, "Which of you two stopped this man?" No one answered. So he stepped forward. "Do you know who he is?" They glanced at each other, shrugged, shuffled, silent. Then he said it. "That man saved my life in 1984. He led a night extraction that pulled 6 of us out of the mountains when we were written off as dead. He trained every senior recon leader your government has trusted for 3 decades. He turned fully to them. Now, you didn't just pull over an old truck. You disrespected one of the finest soldiers this country has ever known." The weight of those words settled like iron. Even the summer heat felt colder. For the first time that day, the officers had nothing to say. The silence didn't last, because General Lawson wasn't finished. He turned to the crowd, the phones, the bystanders, the officers. His voice didn't rise, but it filled the block. This man served in 7 countries you'll never find on a map. He's jumped from planes into blizzards, crawled through minefields to carry wounded men out, led missions you'll only read about 50 years from now, if they're declassified. He looked at the rusted truck. That truck's part of military history. It carried medical gear across floodwaters during Hurricane Andrew. Sergeant Major Redden drove it through 5 feet of water to reach families no one else could. The crowd shifted. One woman near the gas station spoke up. "I know him. He built my father's wheelchair ramp after his stroke. Wouldn't take a dime." Another voice from across the street. "He brings groceries to the senior center every week, rain or shine." A man in mechanic's overalls stepped closer. "He taught my son's scout troop survival training last summer. First time I saw my boy listen to anyone. People weren't watching anymore. They were remembering." The younger officer took a step back, face flushed. His partner cleared his throat. "Sir, we didn't know." General Lawson's stare sharpened. "That's the problem. You didn't ask." Then he turned to Thomas, who still hadn't spoken. "Permission to help you up, Sergeant Major?" Thomas shifted, placed both hands on the curb, rose on his own, slow but steady. "Permission granted," he said quietly. Then he stood tall, back straight, shoulders square, hat low over his brow. The general saluted. Thomas returned it, slow, deliberate, the kind of salute that says more than any speech. The crowd went still. Even the children knew not to speak. Then Thomas broke his silence, turning to the officers, calm as ever. "Don't apologize to me. Apologize to the next old man, before you assume he's nothing." It wasn't said with anger, wasn't said to wound. It was said the way soldiers speak when they know what people cost. That's when everyone saw it. This wasn't a man clinging to the past. This was a man who'd built the future, still holding it up quietly, one act of kindness at a time. The younger officer lowered his sunglasses, shame in his eyes. He looked like he wanted to disappear into the gravel. "I'm sorry, sir. I didn't know." Thomas gave a faint nod, not angry, not smug, just tired. "That's the point, son. You never know who someone is by looking. That's why respect should come first, not last." The general stepped in, opening a brown leather folder, government seal on the front. "This is Sergeant Major Redden's unclassified service record. 3 Bronze Stars, 2 Purple Hearts, Operations Director for classified missions across 3 continents. His extraction protocol is still taught in Special Forces training." He handed the folder to the senior officer. "Before your shift ends, I suggest you read it front to back." The officer nodded, hands shaking slightly. The general wasn't done. "As for the truck," he said, gesturing to the beat-up Chevy, "it's a registered historical vehicle under a federal exemption tied to military heritage. The paperwork's filed with your department annually." He paused. "Perhaps next time, check before you humiliate someone." The next morning, the sheriff's department issued a public statement. They didn't spin it, didn't bury it. They called it what it was, a mistake made in ignorance, a moment that changed their department forever. Within a week, the town declared June 12th as Thomas Redden Day. Photos from that afternoon hit national papers. One, the general's salute returned by Thomas, became the cover of Military Honor Weekly. A local fundraiser launched, called the Redden Initiative. Its mission: build access ramps for disabled veterans across the state. Donations poured in, $186,000 in the first week. Thomas directed every penny to a list he'd quietly built for years: veterans who couldn't leave their homes due to stairs, broken porches, uneven walkways. Something else happened. The rookie officer, the one who'd mocked him, didn't disappear after his apology. He started showing up at the VFW on Saturdays. At first, the old vets didn't speak to him. They remembered. But Thomas did something unexpected. He poured the young man a cup of coffee, said, "You learn, or someone else pays next time." Over time, the officer, Brian Keller, became a regular. He helped fix the VFW roof, took seniors to appointments, brought recruits from the academy with him. The sheriff implemented a new mandatory training session: recognition and respect, veterans in our community. The first speaker? Thomas Redden. He said 11 words that day: service doesn't end with the uniform. Neither should respect for it. 3 months later, General Lawson came back, no SUV, no uniform, just a button-down shirt, an old friend in the passenger seat. He and Thomas sat on the porch of Thomas's modest home, the kind you'd drive past without a thought. They shared good whiskey, watched fireflies drift through dusk. "You turned it around, Tom," the general said quietly. Thomas shook his head. They turned it around. All they needed was a mirror. The truck still ran, rattled down Main Street every morning. Lumber in the back, maybe a flag if it was Tuesday. Sometimes groceries, sometimes tools. It passed the gas station, the bakery, the town square. Now, when people saw it, they didn't look through it. They stepped aside, stood up. In one case, a child saluted. Her father quickly followed. The most striking change? Police cruisers didn't stop him anymore. They pulled over to salute. At the police academy, a laminated card now sits in every recruit's welcome folder. It reads 6 words: "You never know who you're stopping." Beside it, a photo of Thomas Redden sitting calmly on a sidewalk, and another, taken minutes later, of a 4-star general standing beside him, head bowed. The Redden Initiative is now statewide, with over 340 ramps built for disabled veterans in less than a year. Thomas never went on the news, never gave interviews. He just kept showing up, toolbox in hand, ready to measure, cut, drill. To him, respect wasn't a headline. It was action, one screw, one step, one porch at a time. When a Vietnam veteran passed away without family to carry him to rest, Thomas showed up early, drove the casket himself in the same truck the police once mocked. At the cemetery, 2 cruisers followed quietly, not to write citations, but to escort him. Some men leave a legacy in history books. Others leave it in the hearts of those who watched them carry a country's weight without asking for applause. Thomas Redden never needed a salute, but now, every time he drives by, he gets one. Subscribe to Dignity Diaries if you believe true honor doesn't rust. If you've met someone like Thomas Redden, share this story with Dignity Diaries. Someone needs the reminder.